Okay, this is lesson 8.8, transformations. Pretty simple stuff. A transformation of a figure is a change in its position, shape, or size. The new figure is the image of the original. There are three types of transformations, okay, that we're going to talk about. Three types of transformations. One is called a translation. I'm going to write these words up here. Translation. Another name for translation is a slide. I'm sure you've heard of this before, a slide. Here's the deal. If I was to take this shape right here, I'm going to do a very simple shape. Do you agree that's a simple shape? If I'm going to translate that, or I'm going to slide that, imagine you on your desk right now, if you had that little shape right there, and you just slid it. You aren't allowed to spin it. You're not allowed to flip it over. You're just going to slide it. If I was to slide it across that dotted line, what would it look like? It would just look like the same exact thing. It would just be slid over. Does that make sense? If I were you, I would draw this or take notes on this so you know. Translation means slide. It means you just slide it. I could, if I wanted to. You see, I slid it across that line there, the red dotted line. What if I was to slide it across this dotted line? Well, that means that it's just down here now, right? It means that it's down here instead. No big deal. You just slide it across the line. Did I spin it? Did I flip it over? No, I just slid it. That's a translation. You're going to have to memorize what that word is. Okay? All right. Another type of transformation is called a rotation. Oops, that's not how I want to do it. It's called a rotation. You should know that word. What is rotation? What does that sound like? To rotate. Do you agree that sounds to rotate? What does to rotate mean? If you're out there and playing volleyball and you rotate, what does that mean? You move. How though? How do you move? You turn, right? You spin it. As you guys are, if in your volleyball, here's the net, and you have a guy here, guy here, right here, right? When it's time to rotate, what do? Everybody moves in a circle in the same direction, right? This guy moves that way, 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 right? To rotate means to turn, right? Rotate means turn. Rotation means to turn. So, if I have my shape here, let's talk about my shape again, a simple one, another easy one. There's my shape. And if I'm going to turn that thing, if I told you I was going to turn that thing across that line, what that means is that mine is going to now look like that. Do you agree? You see what I'm talking about? I have now turned it.
Wait, does it always move down?
No, I could turn it clockwise, I could turn it counterclockwise, but it's still a turn. I've turned that thing. Does that make sense? I have rotated it. To rotate means to spin or turn. Does that make sense? If I did another object, let's do one that looks like... Okay, if I was to turn that thing, what would it look like? Well, that little knobby thing, where would it be? Say I turned it clockwise 90 degrees. Or what is 90 degrees? Isn't that a quarter of a circle, right? 90 degrees is a quarter turn. Where would the little knobby thing be? Pointing down, right? It would be down. My drawing isn't great, obviously. But, that is a 90-degree clockwise turn or rotation. Make sense? Okay. The last type of translation we're going to learn about today is called a reflection. Where do you hear the word reflection when you're talking about a mirror, right? You're looking at a reflection. It's a mirror image. We dealt with this yesterday quite a bit when we were talking about, what was that called yesterday? Line symmetry, right? Line symmetry has an image, a mirror image, right? That's what a reflection is. So here's the deal. Let's take our shape again. Okay. If I was going to reflect that across that line, what would it look like? Well, it would look a lot like that. Do you agree? I didn't draw it to the right size, but you understand my point, right? It is a reflection across the line. If you were to pretend like you were in kindergarten and you had paint on one side and you folded it across, it would look exactly the same, like a mirror image of the other. Here's the deal. Did you know that here? I have a question. Let's talk about this. Let me show you something, and I want to see if you can figure this out. I'm going to give you a shape here. I'm just going to go like this. I'm going to do the same one I did before. I'm going to try and draw it neatly. Pretend that I've drawn this neatly, okay? That little knobby thing. Okay, and here's the deal. I'm going to put it across that line right there. Okay, and I'm going to... Nope, not there. No. No. It's hard to draw with this thing. Remember, pretend that I've drawn this neatly. Tell me what I did to get it from here to here. What did I do? What did I do? Flipping it is called a reflection, right? Is that what you would have said? All of you said that I reflected it? You know what I did? I rotated it. Do you see how it can be both? Do you see how rotation and reflection can be the same thing? If I rotate something 180 degrees, in other words, I spin it 180 degrees, one halfway around, then what does it look a whole lot like? A reflection. Okay? So, generally, I'll tell you this. If you got this question on a test, you know what I would say happened with this? I would absolutely say a reflection. Does that make sense? If they were to say, though, if they were to ask you to take that shape and to rotate that shape, they asked you to rotate that thing 180 degrees, what's 180 degrees? Halfway, right? What is 90 degrees? 1/4. What is 270 degrees? 3/4, right? If they said to rotate this 180 degrees, what's another way of writing something that is rotated 180 degrees? To reflect it, right? You just reflect it across the line. I have a question. If I was to ask you just to take that shape right there, the way it sits, the way you look at it, and say, reflect that image. Is this right here, is what I had before, the only answer that you can have for that reflection? Is that the only answer? No. What if I said, what if I did this? Why is that happening? Don't do that. Why is that happening? Stop. It's not letting me. There. Okay. Wow, it's acting so strange. Hold on. Oh, I know why. Okay. What if I did this? Isn't that an image too? Isn't that a reflection too? Right? So what's important? If you want to know the exact reflection, what has to be there? That little line. It's called the line of reflection, right? It's called the line of reflection. You have to have it. That's what tells you which way you're going to reflect it. Can't I also have done this? If the line of reflection was right here, that's what it would look like. What if the line of reflection was right here? Then wouldn't it be down here? So that thing is really bugging me. Wouldn't we be flipping it down this way and just flipping it over? Right? Does that make sense? Does the line of reflection have a lot to do with what it looks like when you reflect it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see if... Let me see. Okay, I have a question. Let's talk about this. Say I have the letter A. Okay, letter A, right? And I was going to rotate that 90 degrees clockwise. I was going to rotate that 90 degrees clockwise. I have a question. Well, here's the deal, I'll tell you. You need to know where you are rotating it from. Pretend that you had a piece of paper. Right now, take out a blank piece of paper. Not even blank. Just any piece of paper. Kind of clear your desk. Make yourself some room. Make yourself some room. So you have a little bit of room. You're going to take out a piece of paper and just kind of put that paper in front of you so that it looks like a regular old piece of paper, you know, like this. Okay? Take that piece of paper and put it in front of you. Give yourself some room. I'm not kidding. More room, more room, more room, more room, more. Okay. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. If I was to tell you to rotate your paper clockwise 90 degrees, some of you would literally take the paper and you would spin it so that it now looked like, agreed, right? Turn it clockwise 90 degrees. Would that be different than if somebody were to put their finger on this spot right here and rotate it so that it did this? Do you see what I'm talking about? Where you put the center of your paper, where you put your finger to spin it is going to have a lot to do with where your paper is at. Do you agree? When you guys, a lot of you, when you spun it, you would have put your finger right in the center, right, and just spun it so that it looked like that. You know what I'm talking about? Just spun it. But some of you might have put your finger on the corner and spun it 90 degrees. You see what I'm saying? Does that change where your paper is at, where you put your finger when you spin it? Yes. That place where you put your finger, where you're going to hold it still, is called the center of rotation. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's go back to that letter A. Let's just say I have my letter A here. Okay. If I was to tell you that you're going to rotate this A, and the center of rotation is right here at the corner, at the bottom, what 90 degrees clockwise, what's it going to look like now? What would it look like now? Well, imagine taking that shape. If I had that shape drawn out on your paper, on your desk, are you all paying attention up here? Imagine that I was put my finger on that spot, the red dot, and spin it 90 degrees. It would look like this. Do you agree that that's what it would look like? 90 degrees? Yes? Okay. What if I was to tell you that you were going to spin it clockwise 90 degrees from there? Do you agree that that's what it would look like? Yes? You see what I'm talking about? What if I was to tell you that we were going to spin it from that point? Now what would it look like? Do you agree? You see what I'm talking about? It changes things. The center of rotation is where you put your finger and you're going to spin it. It's important. Just like the line of reflection is important, or the line of translation is important, the center of rotation is important. I think you guys can do the rest. I think you guys are ready.